He came to destroy our family with his secret, but our child's words turned the whole room against him. My name is Viona Martinez. I'm 37 years old and live in a quiet neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. For 12 years, I believed I had built the perfect family, a comfortable 2-story home with a front garden I tended every morning, 2 beautiful children who filled our house with laughter, and a husband who seemed devoted to us all. But perfection, I learned, is often just a carefully painted mask hiding the ugliest truths. My husband Phoenix is 40 years old and works as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. When we first met at a coffee shop near the university, he was finishing his business degree while I was completing my teaching certification. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when he spoke to me. His smile was warm, his promises felt real, and when he proposed after 2 years of dating, I said yes without hesitation. We married in 2012 in a small ceremony surrounded by family and friends. Our daughter Lennox was born a year later, followed by our son Jake 3 years after that. I left my teaching position when Lennox started school, not because Phoenix asked me to, but because I wanted to be present for every moment of their childhood. Every school play, every soccer game, every scraped knee needed a band-aid and a hug. Phoenix traveled frequently for work, sometimes gone for weeks at a time. At first, I understood. Building a career takes sacrifice, and I was willing to support his ambitions. He called every night when he was away, sent flowers on my birthday, and always brought gifts for the kids when he returned. The children adored him. Lennox, now 11, would run to the door whenever she heard his car in the driveway. Jake, 8, would save his best drawings to show Dad when he came home. But over the past 2 years, something shifted. The phone calls became shorter and less frequent. The flowers stopped coming. When Phoenix was home, he seemed distracted, always checking his phone, always having urgent calls to take in the other room. I told myself it was work stress. The pharmaceutical industry was competitive, and he was climbing the corporate ladder. Success demanded focus. I filled my days with the children's activities and my own quiet passion for photography. What started as taking pictures of Lennox and Jake grew into something more. I began documenting our neighborhood, the changing seasons, the small moments that made life beautiful. I posted my work on social media under the name VM Photography, and slowly people began to notice. Local families started asking me to photograph their children, their special occasions. It wasn't much money, but it was mine. The first real crack in our marriage appeared 6 months ago. Phoenix came home from a business trip to Denver, looking different. Not physically, but something in his eyes had changed. He was quieter at dinner, more impatient with the children's stories about school. When Lennox asked him to help with her science project, he said he was too tired and would look at it tomorrow. Tomorrow never came before his next trip. I started noticing other things. Phoenix had always been neat, but now he was obsessively careful about his phone, his laptop, his personal belongings. He changed his passwords, something he'd never done in 12 years of marriage. When I asked about it casually, he said his company had implemented new security protocols. It sounded reasonable, but the way he wouldn't meet my eyes when he said it made my stomach twist. The children began to notice too. Jake, who had always been Daddy's little shadow, stopped asking when Papa would be home. Lennox, more perceptive at 11 than I sometimes gave her credit for, asked me one evening while we were making dinner, "Why doesn't Dad smile at us anymore like he used to?" I didn't have an answer that wouldn't worry her, so I said what mothers always say when they're trying to protect their children from adult problems. "Daddy's just working very hard right now, sweetheart. He loves us very much." But even as I said the words, I wondered if they were still true. The truth came crashing down on a Tuesday evening in March. Phoenix had been gone for 10 days on what he called a critical client presentation tour through Colorado and Utah. He was supposed to return Wednesday, but he called Tuesday afternoon to say he was driving back early and would be home for dinner. I was excited. The kids were excited. Lennox helped me make his favorite pot roast, and Jake drew a welcome home sign with crayons. We set the table with the good dishes, lit candles, and waited. Phoenix walked through the door at 6:30 p.m., but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a woman I'd never seen before. She was younger than me, maybe early 30s, with long dark hair and nervous eyes. She carried a small suitcase and held the hand of a little girl who looked to be about 5 years old. The child had Phoenix's distinctive green eyes and his dimpled chin. The pot roast grew cold as we all stood frozen in our entryway. "Fiona," Phoenix said, his voice steady but his hands shaking slightly. "We need to talk. This is Sarah and this is Lily. They're going to be staying with us for a while." Lennox and Jake stared at the strangers in their home. I stared at the little girl who looked so much like their father that there could be no mistake about what this meant. "Kids," I said, my voice somehow remaining calm. "Go wash your hands for dinner. I need to speak with your father." Lennox, wise beyond her years, took Jake's hand and led him upstairs without argument. I heard their bedroom door close. "The living room," I said to Phoenix. "Now." Sarah stood awkwardly by the door, still holding her daughter's hand. The little girl looked around our home with wide, uncertain eyes. In our living room, surrounded by family photos and the children's artwork on the walls, Phoenix told me the truth he'd been hiding for 6 years. He met Sarah during a business trip to Denver in 2018. What started as a one-night mistake became a long-distance affair. When Sarah became pregnant, Phoenix panicked. He wasn't ready to leave his family, but he couldn't abandon his child either. So he created a double life, supporting Sarah and Lily financially while maintaining his marriage to me. "She's my daughter, Fiona," he said, unable to look at me directly. "Her name is Lily, and she's 5 years old. Sarah lost her job last month, and they're being evicted from their apartment. I couldn't let my child be homeless." I sat on the couch where we'd watched countless movies together, where we'd held our babies when they were sick, where we'd planned our future, and tried to process what he was telling me. "6 years," I said quietly. "You've been lying to me for 6 years. I never meant for it to happen this way. I was going to tell you, but the time never seemed right, and then..." "And then what, Phoenix? It became easier to just keep lying?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was struggling. "Sarah and Lily have nowhere else to go. I thought maybe we could figure something out. Maybe you could understand." "Understand?" I stood up, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "You want me to understand that you've been living a double life for 6 years? That you have a child with another woman? That you brought them here, to our home, without even discussing it with me first?" "She's my daughter," Phoenix shouted back. "What was I supposed to do, let her live on the streets?" "You were supposed to be honest with your wife," I shouted back. "You were supposed to think about Lennox and Jake. You were supposed to remember that you already had a family." Our raised voices had carried upstairs. I could hear Lennox's door open, then footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the living room doorway, her face pale and worried. "Mom? Dad, is everything okay?" I looked at my daughter, this beautiful, intelligent girl who trusted us to keep her world safe and stable, and felt my heart break. How do you explain to an 11-year-old that her father has been living a lie? How do you tell her that the man she adores has betrayed everything she believed about their family? Phoenix saw Lennox too, and his expression softened. "Lennox, sweetheart, come here." She walked over cautiously, and Phoenix pulled her into a hug. "I need to tell you something important, and I need you to be very brave and very grown up, okay?" Lennox nodded, though I could see the fear in her eyes. "You know how I travel for work? Well, a few years ago, I met someone, and she has a little girl. The little girl is your half-sister, and her name is Lily. They need our help right now, so they're going to stay with us for a while." Lennox pulled back from the hug and looked at her father with an expression I'd never seen on her young face before. It was the look of someone realizing that the person they trusted most in the world had let them down. "You have another family?" she asked quietly. "Not another family, sweetheart. You and Jake and Mom, you're my family. But Lily is my daughter too, and—" "Does Jake know?" Lennox interrupted. "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." Lennox looked at me, then back at her father. "Where's Jake going to sleep if they're staying in his room?" It was such a practical question from a child trying to make sense of an impossible situation, and it broke my heart all over again. "We'll figure it out," Phoenix said. "Maybe Jake can sleep in your room for a while, or—" "No." Lennox's voice was firm, more mature than any 11-year-old should have to be. "Jake's room is Jake's room. He shouldn't have to give up his space because you made a mistake." The silence that followed was deafening. Phoenix stared at his daughter, clearly not expecting such directness from her. "Lennox," he started, but she cut him off. "I heard you and Mom fighting. I heard you say you've been lying for 6 years." Her voice remained steady, but tears started flowing down her cheeks. "That means you were lying when Lily was born. You were lying when we went to Disneyland for my birthday last year. You were lying every time you said you loved our family. Lennox, that's not—" "Were you with them on Christmas?" she asked. "When you said you had to work late on Christmas Eve, were you really with them?" Phoenix's silence was answer enough. Lennox wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and looked at her father with a composure that stunned me. "You can't just bring strangers into our house and expect us to pretend everything is okay. That's not fair to any of us. It's not fair to Mom. It's not fair to me and Jake. And it's not fair to that little girl either." She turned and walked back toward the stairs, then paused. "I'm going to tell Jake that we have company, but I'm not going to lie to him about who they are. He deserves to know the truth, even if you think we're too young to handle it." And with that, my 11-year-old daughter walked upstairs, leaving her father speechless in the living room. I had never been more proud of her, and I had never felt more heartbroken. Phoenix looked at me with desperate eyes. "Fiona, please. I know this is hard, but we can make this work. We can be a blended family. People do it all the time." "People do it all the time, when they're honest about it from the beginning," I said. "People do it when they discuss it with their spouse before bringing strangers into their home. People do it when they don't spend 6 years lying to everyone they claim to love. What do you want me to do? Throw them out on the street? I want you to think about what you've done to this family. I want you to consider that maybe, just maybe, you should have thought about the consequences before you decided to live a double life for 6 years." I walked to the window and looked out at the street where our neighbors were living their normal lives, completely unaware that the family at 1247 Maple Drive was falling apart. "They can stay tonight," I said without turning around. "Sarah and Lily can have the guest room. Tomorrow, you figure out another solution. I won't throw a child out on the street, but I also won't pretend that this is okay." "And us?" Phoenix asked quietly. "What about our marriage?" I turned to face him, this man I'd loved for so many years. This man who had just shattered everything I thought I knew about our life together. "I honestly don't know, Phoenix. I don't know if there's an us to save anymore." That night, I lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of strangers in my home. Sarah was trying to comfort Lily, who was crying softly in the guest room. The little girl was confused and scared, torn from the only home she'd ever known and thrust into a house full of people who didn't know what to do with her. Phoenix slept on the couch downstairs. I could hear him tossing and turning, his phone buzzing with what I assumed were messages from work colleagues wondering why he hadn't returned their calls. Lennox came into my room around midnight, something she hadn't done since she was very young. "Mom?" she whispered. "Are you awake?" "Yes, sweetheart. Come here." She climbed into bed beside me, and we lay there in the darkness together. "Is Dad going to leave us now?" she asked. I don't know, Lennox. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I don't want him to leave, she said, but I also don't want him to stay if he's going to keep lying to us. I held my daughter close and wondered when she'd become so wise and why it had taken such a painful situation to reveal it. Whatever happens, I told her, you and Jake will be okay. I promise you that. I know, she said. But what about you, Mom? Will you be okay? I didn't answer right away because I didn't know. But eventually, I said, yes, sweetheart. I'll be okay too. The next morning brought chaos. Jake woke up early and wandered downstairs to find his father sleeping on the couch. When Phoenix tried to explain the situation, Jake's 8-year-old mind struggled to process it all. So Lily is my sister? He asked. Phoenix nodded. Your half-sister, yes. But I already have a sister. Lennox is my sister. You can have more than one sister, buddy. Jake considered this for a moment. Does this mean I have to share my toys? Despite everything, I almost smiled. Jake's concerns were refreshingly simple compared to the adult complications swirling around us. Sarah emerged from the guest room looking exhausted and embarrassed. Lily clung to her mother's leg, overwhelmed by the strange house and the tension she could feel even if she didn't understand it. I made breakfast for everyone, falling back on the familiar routine of caring for children because I didn't know what else to do. Lennox helped me set the table, adding 2 extra place settings without being asked. Jake showed Lily his collection of toy cars, and for a few minutes, the kitchen almost felt normal. But normal was an illusion that couldn't last. We need to talk about practical arrangements, I said to Phoenix as we stood by the coffee maker. Lennox is right. Jake can't give up his room indefinitely, and I can't have strangers living in my house without some kind of plan. Sarah's looking for a job, Phoenix said, and I'm going to help her find an apartment nearby so I can still see Lily regularly. With what money? I asked. You've been supporting them for 6 years. How much of our family's financial security have you been secretly giving away? Phoenix's face went pale. It's not like that, Fiona. I've been careful. Careful? You've been lying to me about our finances for 6 years and you call that careful? I never touched the kids' college funds or our retirement accounts. I used my bonuses, my commission checks, money that should have gone to our family's future, I interrupted. Money that could have paid for Lennox's piano lessons or Jake's summer camp or a dozen other things we decided we couldn't afford. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the front door. Through the window, I could see a police car parked in our driveway. My stomach dropped. Had someone called about a domestic disturbance? Had the neighbors heard us arguing last night? I opened the door to find a female police officer standing on my porch. Good morning, ma'am. I'm Officer Rodriguez. We received a call about a possible custody issue at this address? I looked back at Phoenix, confused. I'm sorry, officer, but I think there's been a mistake. We don't have any custody issues. Are you Fiona Martinez? Yes. And is there a Sarah Williams currently staying in your home with a minor child? My confusion deepened. Yes, but... Ma'am, I have a court order here regarding the child's custody. Officer Rodriguez handed me a legal document. According to this order, the child should be in the custody of her maternal grandmother in Colorado. Sarah appeared behind me, her face white with panic. Officer, please, I can explain. Ma'am, are you Sarah Williams? Yes, but... You're in violation of a custody order issued by the Denver Family Court. You were supposed to surrender custody of your daughter to Patricia Williams 3 days ago. The pieces started falling into place. Sarah hadn't just lost her job and her apartment. She'd also lost custody of her daughter and had fled the state with Lily to avoid giving her up. Phoenix, I said, my voice dangerously low. What exactly did you bring into my home? But Phoenix looked as shocked as I felt. Sarah, what is she talking about? You said you were being evicted. I am being evicted, Sarah cried. But that's because I spent all my money on lawyers trying to keep Lily. My mother wants to take her away from me, and I couldn't let that happen. Officer Rodriguez looked at all of us with the weary expression of someone who'd seen too many family dramas. Ma'am, according to the court order, you were found to be an unfit parent due to drug use and unstable living conditions. The child was awarded to her grandmother pending a review hearing. That's not fair, Sarah shouted. I've been clean for 8 months. I have a job interview next week. I just needed more time. That's not my decision to make, ma'am. I need to take the child into protective custody until arrangements can be made to transport her back to Colorado. Lily, who had been playing quietly with Jake's toys, suddenly understood that something bad was happening. She started crying and ran to her mother. Mama, I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. Lennox, who had been watching everything unfold from the kitchen doorway, walked over to me. Mom, what's happening? I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly don't know. Phoenix stepped forward. Officer, I'm the child's father. Doesn't that give me any rights in this situation? Are you listed on the birth certificate, sir? Phoenix hesitated. No, but I can prove paternity. Without legal documentation, sir, I can't recognize your parental rights. The court order is clear. The child needs to be returned to Colorado. What happened next will stay with me forever. As Officer Rodriguez approached Lily, the 5-year-old girl looked around our living room at all the adults who were supposed to protect her, and she said something that stopped everyone in their tracks. I don't want to go to Grandma's house. I want to stay with my daddy. My daddy said we were going to be a real family now. The officer paused. Who is your daddy, sweetheart? Lily pointed at Phoenix. Him, Daddy Phoenix. He said he loves me, and he was going to take care of me and Mama forever. Then she looked at Lennox and Jake, who were standing together by the stairs, watching their world crumble. Are you my brother and sister? She asked them. Daddy Phoenix said you were going to be my brother and sister. Lennox, my brave, incredible daughter, walked over to this confused little girl who was at the center of a mess she didn't create or understand. Hi, Lily, she said gently. I'm Lennox, and this is Jake. We're your half-siblings. That means we have the same daddy. Are you going to take care of me too? Lily asked. Lennox looked at her father, then at me, then back at Lily. I don't know what's going to happen, Lily, but I can tell you that none of this is your fault, okay? Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and kids get hurt, but it's never the kid's fault. Officer Rodriguez looked at Phoenix with obvious disapproval. Sir, did you promise this child that she would be staying here permanently? I thought we could work something out. Phoenix stammered. I didn't know about the custody order. Sarah told me she just needed a place to stay temporarily. So you brought a child into your home and made her promises you couldn't keep without consulting your wife or considering the legal implications? The officer's tone made it clear what she thought of Phoenix's judgment. I was trying to help my daughter. You were trying to help yourself feel better about abandoning your responsibility for 6 years, I said, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. You don't get to be the hero now, Phoenix. You don't get to ride in and save the day when you're the one who created this situation in the first place. Phoenix turned to me with desperate eyes. Fiona, please. No, I said firmly. You've said enough. You've done enough. I turned to Officer Rodriguez. What happens to Lily now? She'll be placed in temporary protective custody while arrangements are made to transport her back to Colorado. It's not ideal, but it's what the court order requires. Sarah was sobbing now, holding her daughter tightly. Please, officer, isn't there anything we can do? I just need a little more time to get back on my feet. Ma'am, you need to take this up with the court in Colorado. I'm just here to enforce the order. As the officer gently but firmly separated Lily from her mother, the little girl looked around the room one more time. Daddy Phoenix, she said, you promised we would be a family. You promised you wouldn't leave me. Phoenix's face crumpled. Lily, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But you promised, she said, her voice breaking. Lennox stepped forward again. Lily, sometimes grown-ups make promises they can't keep. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they made a mistake. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small stuffed elephant that she'd had since she was little. "This is Mr. Peanuts," she said, handing it to Lily. "He always made me feel better when I was scared. Maybe he can help you feel better too." Lily clutched the elephant to her chest as Officer Rodriguez led her toward the door. "Will I see you again?" she asked Lennox. "I don't know," Lennox said honestly, "but I hope so. And I hope you'll be okay." After they left, our house fell into a silence that felt like death. Sarah sat on our couch, crying. Phoenix stood by the window, staring out at the street where a police car had just driven away with his daughter. Lennox and Jake huddled together on the stairs, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. I walked into the kitchen and started washing the breakfast dishes because I needed something to do with my hands, something normal and routine to anchor me while my world spun out of control. Phoenix followed me. "Vianna, I'm sorry, I had no idea about the custody situation. Sarah told me." "Sarah told you what you wanted to hear," I said without looking at him. "Just like you've been telling me what you thought I wanted to hear for 6 years. That's not fair." I turned to face him, my hands dripping with dishwater. "Fair? You want to talk about fair, Phoenix? Is it fair that I just watched a 5-year-old girl get taken away by the police because her father made promises he couldn't keep? Is it fair that Lennox and Jake had to witness their father's lies destroying another child's life? Is it fair that I'm standing in my kitchen trying to clean up the mess while you brought a fugitive and her child into our home without telling me? I didn't know Sarah was—" "You didn't know because you didn't ask," I shouted. "You didn't ask because you were too busy playing the hero to think about the consequences. You were too busy feeling guilty about abandoning your daughter for 6 years to consider what bringing her here would do to the daughter you see every day." Sarah appeared in the kitchen doorway. "I should go," she said quietly. "I should pack up and leave. I've caused enough trouble." "Where will you go?" I asked, because despite everything, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was a woman in crisis. "I don't know. Maybe back to Colorado. Maybe I can figure out how to get Lily back." "Sarah," Phoenix said, "I can help you find a lawyer, help you get back on your feet." "No," I interrupted. "Absolutely not. You've helped enough." I turned to Sarah. "I'm sorry about your situation, I truly am. But you can't stay here. This isn't fair to my children, and frankly, it's not fair to you either. You need to go back to Colorado and fight for your daughter through the proper legal channels." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll pack up and call a cab." "I'll drive you to the airport," Phoenix offered. "No," I said again. "You'll stay here and explain to your children why they just watched their father break a little girl's heart." An hour later, Sarah was gone. Phoenix drove her to the airport despite my objections, leaving me alone with Lennox and Jake to try to make sense of what had just happened. We sat in the living room, the three of us, surrounded by the remnants of our normal morning that had been shattered by secrets and lies. "Is Dad coming back?" Jake asked. "Yes, sweetheart, he's coming back." "But is he staying?" Lennox asked, and her question cut straight to the heart of everything. "I don't know, Lennox. I honestly don't know." That evening, after Phoenix returned from the airport, we sat down for what I knew would be the most important conversation of our marriage. The children were upstairs, supposedly doing homework but probably listening to every word we said. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Phoenix began. "But it did happen," I replied, "and now we have to deal with the consequences. I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I interrupted. "Phoenix, you had an affair. You had a child with another woman. You supported them financially for 6 years while lying to me about our finances. You brought them into our home without discussing it with me first. And today, our children watched as your daughter was taken away by the police because you didn't even bother to understand the situation you were walking into. These aren't mistakes. These are choices. Bad choices that have hurt everyone involved." Phoenix was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do, Viana? How do I fix this? I don't think you can fix this, I said. I think some things are too broken to repair. Are you asking me to leave? I'm asking you to think about what's best for Lennox and Jake. They've been through enough trauma today. They don't need to watch their parents fight every day while we try to pretend we can go back to the way things were. But I love you, Phoenix said. I love our family. If you loved our family, you wouldn't have spent 6 years lying to us. If you loved our family, you would have thought about us before you brought strangers into our home. If you loved our family, you wouldn't have made promises to a 5-year-old girl that you couldn't keep. We were interrupted by a knock at the door. Phoenix went to answer it, and I heard voices in the entryway. A moment later, he returned with a man in a suit carrying a briefcase. Viana, this is Detective Morrison. He needs to ask us some questions about Sarah and the custody situation. For the next hour, we answered questions about Sarah's time in our home, about what we knew of her situation, about Phoenix's relationship with her and Lily. It was humiliating and exhausting, having to explain our personal business to a stranger while our children hid upstairs. After the detective left, I made a decision. Phoenix, I want you to stay somewhere else tonight. Maybe at your brother's house, maybe at a hotel. I don't care where, but I need you to leave. Viana, I need time to think, and I can't do that with you here. The children need time to process what happened today without having to worry about whether their parents are going to start fighting again. For how long? I don't know. Maybe a few days, maybe longer. We'll figure it out as we go. Phoenix looked around our living room, at the family photos on the mantle, at the children's artwork on the walls, at the life we'd built together over 12 years. I never wanted to hurt you, he said quietly. But you did hurt me, I replied. You hurt all of us, and now we have to figure out how to move forward. After Phoenix left, I went upstairs to check on Lennox and Jake. I found them in Lennox's room, sitting on her bed and talking quietly. Is Dad coming back? Jake asked when he saw me. Not tonight, sweetheart. He's going to stay somewhere else for a few days while we all figure things out. Are you getting divorced? Lennox asked. I don't know yet, honey. I need some time to think about what's best for our family. Lennox nodded. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Lily will be okay? With her grandmother, I mean. My heart broke a little more. Even after everything that had happened, my compassionate daughter was worried about a little girl she'd just met. A little girl who was at the center of the chaos that had destroyed our family's peace. I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so. That night, after the children were asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and tried to make sense of my life. In one day, I'd learned that my husband had been living a double life for 6 years, that he'd had a child with another woman, that he'd been lying to me about our finances, and that he'd brought a woman and child into our home without understanding the legal implications of their situation. I thought about Lennox's wisdom, about how she'd handled herself with dignity and compassion even while her world was falling apart. I thought about Jake's innocence, about how he'd tried to share his toys with a little girl who was there one moment and gone the next. I thought about Lily, scared and confused, torn away from the only stability she'd found in her young life. And I thought about myself, about who I was outside of being Phoenix's wife. I was a mother, yes, but I was also a photographer, a woman with her own dreams and ambitions. I was someone who had spent 12 years building a life that I now realized was built on lies. Over the next 3 days, Phoenix called several times, asking if he could come home, asking if we could talk. I wasn't ready. I needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out what was best for Lennox and Jake. On the 4th day, Lennox came to me with a question that surprised me. Mom, can we go visit Lily? What do you mean, sweetheart? Can we go to Colorado and see if she's okay? I can't stop thinking about her. Lennox, that's very sweet of you, But I don't think that's possible. We don't even know where she is, and we're not family. But we are family, Lennox interrupted. She's my half-sister. That makes her family, even if Dad messed everything up. I looked at my daughter, this remarkable young woman who had somehow maintained her compassion and integrity even while watching her father's lies destroy our family's peace. Let me think about it, I said. That evening, I called a friend who worked as a social worker and asked her about the possibility of contacting Lily's grandmother. It took several phone calls and some creative problem solving, but eventually I was able to speak with Patricia Williams, Lily's grandmother in Denver. Mrs. Williams, my name is Viona Martinez. I'm the wife of Lily's father. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I see, she said finally. I wondered when someone from his family would call. I know this is unusual, but my daughter Lennox met Lily briefly, and she's very concerned about her. She was wondering if there might be a way for her to stay in touch with Lily, maybe exchange letters or something. Another long pause. Mrs. Martinez, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your husband abandoned my granddaughter for the first 5 years of her life. My daughter Sarah is a troubled young woman who has made many poor choices, but she loves Lily, and she's been trying to get her life together. When your husband suddenly appeared and promised to help them, Sarah thought she'd found the answer to her problems. Instead, he brought them to Arizona and then couldn't follow through on his promises. Now Lily is confused and heartbroken, and she doesn't understand why the man she thought was going to be her daddy let her down again. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of Phoenix's choices settling on all of us. Mrs. Williams, I understand your anger and I don't blame you for it. But Lennox is 11 years old and she's not responsible for her father's mistakes. She genuinely cares about Lily and wants to make sure she's okay. If you're willing, maybe they could write to each other? It might help both girls process what happened. Mrs. Williams was quiet for a moment. You know what, Mrs. Martinez? You sound like a decent woman who got caught up in someone else's mess. Let me talk to Lily and see how she feels about it. If she wants to write to Lennox, I'll allow it. Thank you, I said, feeling genuinely grateful. And Mrs. Williams? How is Lily doing? She's struggling, she admitted. She keeps asking about her daddy Phoenix and when he's coming to get her. It breaks my heart to see her so confused. After I hung up, I sat with the weight of everything that had happened. Phoenix's choices hadn't just destroyed our marriage, they had traumatized a 5-year-old girl who didn't understand why the adults in her life kept letting her down. 3 weeks later, Lennox received her first letter from Lily. It was written in crayon with help from her grandmother, and it said simply, Dear Lennox, thank you for Mr. Peanuts. He makes me feel better when I'm sad. Do you think your daddy will visit me soon? Love, Lily. Lennox cried when she read it, and so did I. That evening, Phoenix came home for what we both knew would be our final conversation as husband and wife. The children were at my sister's house for the night, giving us privacy to talk about our future. I've been thinking about what you said, he began, about my choices and their consequences. I waited for him to continue. You're right. I was selfish. I was a coward. I created this situation by trying to avoid difficult conversations and difficult decisions. I hurt you. I hurt Lennox and Jake. And I hurt Lily by making promises I couldn't keep. Yes, I said simply. You did. I want to make it right, Viona. I want to fix our marriage, rebuild the trust. Phoenix, I interrupted gently. Some things can't be fixed. Some trust, once broken, can't be rebuilt. He nodded, tears in his eyes. Are you filing for divorce? Yes, I've already spoken with an attorney. What about Lennox and Jake? What about custody? They'll stay with me during the week and spend weekends with you once you find your own place. They love you, Phoenix, but they need stability right now. They need to know that at least one parent will be honest with them. And what about Lily? I know I messed up, but she's still my daughter. That's between you and the courts in Colorado. If you want to be part of her life, you need to do it the right way this time. No more shortcuts, no more promises you can't keep. Phoenix broke down then, sobbing at our kitchen table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we'd helped our children with homework, where we'd planned our future together. I'm so sorry, Viona. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are, I said, but sorry doesn't undo the damage. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. Phoenix moved into an apartment across town, close enough to see Lennox and Jake regularly, but far enough away that I could start rebuilding my life. Lennox and Lily continued to exchange letters. Through their correspondence, I learned that Sarah had entered a rehabilitation program and was working with lawyers to regain custody of her daughter. Phoenix had started the legal process to establish paternity and visitation rights, but it would be a long road. My photography business grew steadily. What had started as a way to fill my time became a source of both income and personal fulfillment. I documented other families' happy moments, birthdays, graduations, anniversaries, and found healing in capturing joy through my lens. Lennox started middle school that fall with a maturity that both impressed and saddened me. She joined the school's peer counseling program, helping other students work through family problems. Jake threw himself into soccer and seemed to bounce back more easily, though he still occasionally asked when Dad was coming home for good. One evening in October, almost 8 months after that terrible Tuesday when our world changed, Lennox came to me with a letter from Lily. "Mom, read this," she said, her eyes bright with tears. The letter, written in much neater handwriting than Lily's first attempts, said, "Dear Lennox, guess what? Mommy is doing much better and the judge said I might get to live with her again soon. And Daddy Phoenix came to visit me last week. He said he was sorry for breaking his promise and that he wants to be a better daddy. He didn't make any new promises, but he brought me coloring books and we had ice cream. Grandma says maybe you can visit me sometime if your mom says it's okay. I still sleep with Mr. Peanuts every night. Love, your sister Lily." She called me her sister, Lennox said, wiping her eyes. "Even after everything that happened, she still thinks of me as her sister." "That's because she is your sister," I said. "Biology doesn't choose families, Lennox. Love does. And she loves you because you showed her kindness when her world was falling apart." "Can we go visit her for Christmas?" Lennox asked. "I know it's a lot to ask, but—" "Let me think about it," I said. "Let me see what I can arrange." 3 weeks later, Lennox, Jake, and I flew to Denver for a weekend visit. Patricia Williams met us at the airport, and I was surprised by how warm and welcoming she was. "Lennox," she said, embracing my daughter, "Lily has been talking about you non-stop for weeks." The reunion between the girls was beautiful to watch. Lily, now 6 years old and more confident than when I'd last seen her, ran straight into Lennox's arms. Jake, initially shy, was soon playing with Lily in the hotel room while Lennox helped her with a puzzle. "Your daughter is remarkable," Patricia told me over coffee while the children played. "The way she handled everything that day, the kindness she showed Lily that speaks to how you raised her. She's always been wise beyond her years," I said. "This situation just brought it out more." "Phoenix has been visiting regularly," Patricia continued. "He's different now, more humble. He doesn't make grand promises anymore, but he shows up when he says he will. That's progress." "How is Sarah doing?" "Much better. She's been clean for almost a year now, has a steady job, and a stable apartment. The court is likely to restore custody after the new year. She and Phoenix are working out a co-parenting arrangement that actually puts Lily's needs first." As I watched Lennox teaching Lily how to braid friendship bracelets, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected consequences of a crisis can be the most beautiful. My daughter had gained a sister who lived far away but held a special place in her heart. She had learned about forgiveness, about the complexity of human relationships, and about the importance of keeping promises to children. That Christmas Eve, back home in Phoenix, I tucked Lennox and Jake into their beds and reflected on the year we'd all survived. Our family looked different now, divided between two homes, scarred by betrayal, but stronger in some ways than we'd ever been. "Mom?" Lennox called as I was turning off her light. "Yes, sweetheart. Are you happy? I mean, really happy?" I considered her question carefully. Was I happy? I was divorced, a single mother, rebuilding my life at 37. But I was also free from lies, pursuing my own dreams, and watching my children grow into remarkable human beings. "Yes," I said finally. "I think I am. Are you?" "Most of the time," she said. "I miss how things used to be sometimes, but I like who we are now. We're more honest, and Lily is part of our family now, even if she lives far away." "Yes," I agreed. "She is." A year later, I received an invitation to Lily's 7th birthday party in Denver. Sarah had regained custody, and she wanted Lennox and Jake to be there to celebrate with their sister. Phoenix would be there too, of course, but that no longer filled me with dread or anger. At the party, I watched Phoenix play with all three children, Lennox, Jake, and Lily, and saw a different man than the one who had brought chaos into our home 2 years earlier. He was more present, more careful with his words, more aware of the impact of his actions. The lies and secret life had been replaced with uncomfortable but honest conversations about complex family dynamics. "Thank you," Sarah said to me quietly as we watched the children play together. "For not turning Lennox and Jake against Lily, for letting them be siblings despite everything." "They chose to be siblings," I said. "I just didn't get in their way." As we prepared to leave Denver that weekend, Lily hugged Lennox tightly. "When will I see you again?" she asked. "Soon," Lennox promised. "And we'll keep writing letters until then. And video calls," Jake added. "Mom said we can do video calls now." Lily beamed. "I love having a big sister and a big brother." On the plane home, Lennox leaned against my shoulder and said, "Mom, I know Dad hurt us really badly, but I'm glad Lily is part of our family now." "Even though it was complicated and painful?" I asked. "Especially because it was complicated and painful," she said. "The easy things don't teach you as much." 3 years have passed since that terrible Tuesday that changed everything. Lennox is now 14 and volunteers at a local family services center, helping children cope with divorce and family transitions. Jake is 11 and still plays soccer, though he's also developed an interest in photography and sometimes comes with me on shoots. Phoenix and I have learned to co-parent effectively. We're not friends exactly, but we're no longer enemies. We put Lennox and Jake first in every decision, and we've both worked hard to rebuild their trust in different ways. Lily visits us every summer now, and Lennox and Jake spend part of their winter break in Denver. The long-distance sibling relationship has thrived in ways I never expected. They text regularly, share photos, and support each other through the normal ups and downs of childhood. My photography business has grown into something I'm truly proud of. I specialize now in documenting blended families, children of divorce, and other non-traditional family structures. There's something powerful about helping people see the beauty in their complicated lives, about showing them that love takes many forms. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the way everything happened, if I wish I could go back and prevent Phoenix's affair, avoid the pain and chaos that followed. The answer is complicated. I regret the lies and the betrayal. I regret the pain Lennox and Jake experienced. I regret that Lily had to go through trauma and uncertainty because of adult failures. But I don't regret where we ended up. I don't regret the strength my children discovered in themselves. I don't regret the independence I found. I don't regret the expanded definition of family that now includes a little girl in Denver who calls Lennox and Jake her siblings and who has taught us all about resilience. Phoenix's secret didn't destroy our family, as I once feared it would. Instead, it transformed us into something different, something more honest, something more intentionally chosen rather than simply assumed. Lennox was right. All those years ago when she was just 11 years old and wise beyond her years. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that hurt children, but it's never the children's fault. And sometimes, if we're very lucky and very brave, those mistakes can lead us to a better understanding of what family really means. Our story didn't end the way I once thought it would, but it ended with love. Messy, complicated, hard-won love that spans 2 states and includes more people than I ever planned. And that, I've learned, is not such a bad ending after all. The end.